On today's Locked On Nationals, we are joined by Connor Thomas of Locked On Phillies to talk about some strengths and weaknesses of the Washington Nationals and also the Philadelphia Phillies. And we provide a little bit of a series preview. And this might be a must-win series for the Phillies and the Nationals.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Before we jump into this crossover episode, this episode is brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox, no console needed. Head to amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. So, with that said, let's jump into it with Connor Thomas of Locked On Phillies.
Yes, this is a crossover episode of Locked On Phillies and Locked On Nationals as the Phils welcome Washington to Citizens Bank Park for the first series at the bank between these two teams this year. I'm Connor Thomas, your host of Locked On Phillies, and alongside me is Ryan Clary, who hosts Locked On Nationals. And these teams have already seen each other once this year, but now they get to take it up to the city of brotherly love. And it's an interesting spot for these teams, not just how they've played recently, but we're a little over, officially, a month into the season. So we're going to start with a breakdown of what the first month has been for these two teams. And the Nationals, just a couple games under 500 coming in. I'd say if you were a Nats fan, this has been a solid start to the season considering expectations, right?
Yeah, you know what? Like, first and foremost, Connor, thanks for having me on the show today. And I would say that this was a pretty predictable start for the Nationals. Although, like, for me and where I thought this team would be, I would have thought that this team would be right around where we are now. But the struggles within the Nats right now, I think, is pretty astounding. I thought this bullpen would be really good this season. I think we have a lot of young talent. And so far this season, the Nationals, they have the worst bullpen in all of baseball. I mean, it is a really bad outing each and every single night. It's unfortunate for this because, again, these are young guys in the back end of this bullpen, but they just have not gotten it done up to date so far.
Yeah, we'll trade you because the Phillies are not far behind you there in the bad bullpen category. We are going to take a deeper dive into the strengths and weaknesses so far in the season coming up in our next segment, and we're also going to look at this series as a potential turning point with the Nats coming off a series split with the Mets, who we know swept the Phillies, and the Phillies taking 2 of 3 from the Red Hot Cubs in Chicago. But when you look at the past month for both of these teams, they're kind of in a spot where they're still trying to figure out where they are, I think, or who they are maybe. The Phillies at 15-13, second place in the NL East. The Nationals 13-16, sitting a half game back of the Braves there for what would be third. They're currently in fourth. And it's just tight down there with the Braves, Nationals, Marlins, Phillies not much farther ahead. And I don't know how long the Mets will play at this pace. But I guess the thing for the Phillies, and you can tell me if this is where the Nats are as well, is they just haven't hit a consistent stride yet. They'll have a day where they score, for example, 10 runs on Saturday in Chicago against the Cubs. And then it comes after getting shut out and not having any type of offensive production, and then a minimal offensive production performance in the final game. Some days the bullpen will look like world beaters. Some days they'll look like they have no idea what they're doing. And the starting rotation, I would like to see more consistency from. So do you feel like even a month in, the Nats are still also trying to find their footing?
Yeah, like right now with where the Nationals are, consistency has not been any part of this season so far. And I think a lot of people here in DC in particular, like they've been up and at him about Davey Martinez and kind of where he stands in the managerial role. Davey Martinez so far this season, we have had zero consistency in this lineup. And I think you know this best, Connor. Like when you have a young team, when you have a young and up and coming team, when you got some stars like James Wood and Dylan Cruz and CJ Abrams, consistency is key in establishing that routine every single day. Well, here in DC, what I have been most frustrated with right now is you have no consistency. You had James Wood just last week. He finally was put in the leadoff spot, which is the smart analytical decision to have your best hitter as your leadoff hitter. He hit 2 leadoff home runs, and then all of a sudden they vacate that and they bring CJ Abrams back into that leadoff role. And everyone was like, well, you were winning in those games where James Wood was in the leadoff spot. And of course, we never went back to that. So I think that, again, like we kind of have similar issues with the team so far. There has been no consistency. And if you look at the Nationals offense right now, earlier on this season, they were hitting for power, which is something that we have begged for years now. You have had no power since you've had Juan Soto and Josh Bell back in 2021. And now this season, earlier on, they were hitting for power. But then again, you were striking out a little bit more and you weren't really getting runs on the board. So I think like the consistency thing, it rings true here in DC, but I'm just not sure how long this will kind of go for. Like, again, you've got a lot of young talent here in DC. You see it pop up here and there with James Wood, Dylan Cruz, CJ Abrams, but it's a matter of staying consistent. And can those guys do it? James Wood has proven that. The others, I think we'll just have to see what happens.
Yeah, and all due respect to the Nationals and the team that you guys have put together.
I know what's coming here.
It's annoying to me as a Phillies fan that we have basically the same takeaway from the first month of the season, because the expectations for the Phillies were obviously significantly higher than they were for the Nationals. I mean, this is a team ready to compete for a World Series and win a World Series. It's for this fan base. A lot of people, World Series or bust, which with the Dodgers super team and what's going on in the NL West, it may not be fair expectations. But the Phils are looking at this as a, hey, maybe this is one last ride with this core. And for a lot of the same issues as an up-and-coming team like the Nationals to exist here in Philadelphia, that's going to be troubling for a lot of people to hear in the Phillies fan base. Now, just to set the expectations, because the Phillies more had their sights set on the Mets, the Braves, the other like top tier teams around baseball. What would be the successful season for the Nationals? Would it be a wild card berth? Would it be a 500 record? What is the goal that you guys set for yourself going in?
You know, I think a fair, realistic goal that I had in mind for the Nationals was like winning 78 to 80 games this season. I don't expect them to really make a wild card push. I do see a case where they could potentially, like in August, kind of be in the hunt there. You know, they're going to be maybe around 500 at that time period. You've got Brady House, who's a big-time third base prospect that a lot of Nationals fans in the organization, they're really excited about him and what he's going to bring here. So maybe he provides a little bit of juice later on this season. You've got a couple other pitching prospects who could be making their way back from Tommy John surgery. Cade Cavalli, a former first-round pick for the Nationals, he's doing rehab starts right now. He's looking pretty good right now. Josiah Gray, you guys have seen, the former All-Star. He's been making his way up, and he could potentially be back with the Nationals sometime in August, maybe September, if there is a playoff push. But I think right now, like with where a win-loss record goes, I would expect them to be in that 77 to 80 win range. And I think that's what the expectation is. And that's what it should be. Like, you do have talent here. CJ Abrams was an all-star this last year, and he was really good. The second half, he fell off a little bit, was eventually optioned down to AAA after a gambling incident, which is just hilarious still to this day. You've got James Wood, who has proven to be a star here, in my opinion. I think he's going to be the next, like, Bryce Harper that we've seen come out of the Nationals, Juan Soto. I think he has got that kind of star potential. I don't know if he's going to be on the level of those guys, but he's got that talent, and he can do everything that those two guys can do also. But I think right now, like, again, getting to that 80 win mark, that would be huge for this team, Connor. And I think with the Phillies, where you guys are, you're in a different situation, man. Like, you guys have to win 90 plus games, I feel like. And if it's not 90 plus games, you're probably going to think it's a failure.
No, 100%. That was exactly the line that I do sports talk radio as well up here in Philadelphia. And one of the guys I work with on the morning show was like, if they don't win 90 or more games, it's a complete failure. And I was like, okay, it's not a complete failure because we've seen this team win 87 and go to the World Series as the final wild card team. Now, that's not where you want to live, obviously, but the thing with the Phils is that they're kind of fighting themselves, and they're also fighting the expectations. They said ahead of the season, hey, we're not worried about it. Everyone's talking about the Dodgers. Everyone's talking about the Braves bouncing back. Nobody's thinking about us, so there's no pressure. Well, the first month of the season, they've kind of looked like there's some pressure on them. They've changed their approach a little bit, but the difference in expectations is very interesting for teams that are not far apart in the standings through a good part of the early part of the schedule. And it's intriguing to me that the Phillies fans are so, and rightfully so, critical of this team when they do lose. When you look at a team like the Nationals, has the fan base been happy with what's going on with the Nats? Are you starting to get into that zone where it's like, okay, we do need to win some games, so we're going to start being harder on some players that maybe we were just excited to have?
Yeah, I think that this fan base right now is honestly probably the most split that it's been since early on in 2019 when the Nationals started 19-31. People wanted Davey Martinez fired. They were saying, why didn't we re-sign Bryce Harper? And that was a very tumultuous time for this fan base. And I have not seen them this mad really since then. Like, this has been a fan base that wants to win because we have been told for the last few seasons now, it's next year. This is the year that we're going to compete. And really, in order to compete nowadays, Connor, you guys know this best, you're going to have to spend in free agency. And that just simply has not gotten done up to this point. So I think a lot of the fan base, they're starting to turn and they want to see winning ball games like now. And it just has not happened up at this point. You do have the young talent. But again, taking you back to the 2011 offseason when the Nationals signed Jason Worth away from the Phillies, that was a big deal for us. We finally got over that hump where you got to 500, and then 2012, you skyrocketed and were one of the best teams in all of baseball that year, and then we went on that run all the way through the 2010s. But the Nationals, like, they are missing that veteran piece. I think this fan base knows that, and they've kind of voiced their opinion. They're not happy right now with where this thing is going, and we'll just see what has to happen moving forward and see if they can get it done this offseason.
Hey, a mad fan base is a good thing because that means there are expectations for the team. Now, you want expectations and a happy fan base, and we will talk about some of the players and parts of these teams that are making the fan base happy and upset when we talk about biggest strengths and weaknesses coming up as we continue this crossover episode of Locked On Phillies and Locked On Nationals. Let's talk about wonderful pistachios first. This is something that even Phillies and Nats fans can agree on. If you're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, crack into a good source of protein with wonderful pistachios. They're one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. And they've got a billion different varieties and flavors and seasonings. Now, I like the no shells because I'm lazy. I don't want to have to crack every single pistachio that I eat. Well, they have the no shells option. I get the sea salt and vinegar all the time. They taste great. They're great for you. Maybe Ryan likes to crack the pistachios open. Take a little bit more time. See, just like that. Well, you could get the shells option too. They have everything. They come in these nice resealable pouches so you can take them on the go. They're the perfect snack, especially if you're starting to get on your fit fam grind for summer. You want to eat something that's not potato chips? Yeah, wonderful pistachios is great for you. They taste great. It's honestly the perfect snack to get ready for the summer. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Go and visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. That's wonderfulpistachios.com. All right, the strengths and weaknesses of these teams so far. I mean, the Phillies, their biggest strength was what it was always going to be. Their starting rotation has been awesome. And it's been awesome and still underperforming some people's expectations for how good it can be. We're going to talk about a great pitching matchup when we get to the point where we actually preview the series in our final segment, as we have a rematch of the opening day matchup between Mackenzie Gore and Zach Wheeler. But the Phillies starting rotation with guys like Wheeler, Christopher Sanchez, Jesus Luzardo, who bounced around the division and went from the Marlins to the Phillies. And
drafted by the Nationals also.
Look at that. He's covered just about all of the NL East. I don't want to see him go to the Mets or the Braves, but he's only 2 teams away from the NL East infinity gauntlet. I mean, the starting rotation is the strength of this team. And as long as you get a good 6 or 7 innings out of them, the Phils are going to be a tough team to beat, even if the offense has one of their off days, even if the bullpen has asked to do a little bit. Where this team has really gotten into trouble has been the bullpen. But the starting rotation, absolutely, for me, the biggest strength of this Philadelphia Phillies team so far. And hopefully we'll see that on display, as we did in the opening series when they match up with the Nats. Now, what's the biggest strength of this Nationals team?
You know what? Like, it's actually the Nationals starting pitching also here, Connor. And you talked about the pitching matchup tonight. You've got Mackenzie Gore in the bump for the Nationals, and Mackenzie Gore has been lights out so far this season. I mean, when you traded him, when you traded away Juan Soto and you got Mackenzie Gore, James Wood, C.J. Abrams, like Mackenzie Gore, we all thought would be the ace of this rotation moving forward. And last year, he had an okay year. He kind of fell off in that summer months there in the dog days of summer. But this season so far, Mackenzie Gore has been lights out. He's delivered quality start after quality start. And now you also have Jake Irvin, who you guys will see tomorrow night also. He's taken that next step up. He's been going deeper into ball games, going 6-7 innings deep, which is something that Nationals fans here have been waiting for forever, because we used to have that B starting rotation with Max Scherzer, Steven Strasburg, and guys from years past. But now with where the Nationals are, you've got these younger arms, and we've kind of been waiting for them to go deeper into ball games, to kind of take those next steps. Then it feels as if the Nationals have finally taken that next step into this season. So I think the starting pitching and where we are now, that's our strength at this point. And then also it's hard not to mention James Wood. Like, James Wood has been killing the baseball so far. You've got some guys in the top of this lineup, C.J. Abrams, James Wood. They've been great. They're two guys to watch this series, definitely, because they kind of have a feel for that big moment. And when you're playing in Philly, there's always a big moment between the Nationals and the Phillies.
It's also an easy ballpark to hit in, so that's going to be good for anybody who step into the plate, as long as they're not striking out a billion times like we saw in the opening game down in Washington. I do have to bring up, too, Bryson Stott when we talk about biggest strengths. Very weird thing going on with the Phillies right now. Bryson Stott was moved into the leadoff spot to try and get an opportunity, because people were working around Bryce Harper. So they wanted to move Kyle Schwarber back to cleanup behind Harper at 3 to allow some more protection there. And since they did that, Bryson Stott has been tearing the cover off the ball. He was a guy who had an injury late in the season last year. I was a little nervous about him batting leadoff because I don't know how consistent he was going to be, and he's been awesome. And the Phillies have been losing more than they've been winning. So it's super weird. They picked a leadoff hitter that seems to fit perfectly, and the team has gone in the opposite direction. And part of that maybe because Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper have been cold for the past week or so. Probably not a good sign to be playing the Phillies when those guys are cold, because they're always one swing away from heating up. So maybe it's a they're due type of thing. But some individual players are really playing well for both these teams, and the pitching staffs are going to be great. What's the part of the team that's holding everyone back? Is it the bullpen for both of these teams?
It is. It is the bullpen right now. And I mean, seriously, like the first few weeks of this season, the Nationals bullpen had one of the worst starts over the last 5 seasons. Like, this bullpen was really bad to begin this year. And I'll mention a few names here, like, they're younger-ish guys, so I don't want to just completely railroad them. But Lucas Sims and Colin Poche, they have kind of been the two targets on their back for the Nationals and the fan base here. Like, they come in crucial situations. Nothing good happens. And really, with this bullpen right now, you never know when they're going to click and all of a sudden go 3 scoreless innings. And then, like we saw in yesterday's game, they gave up like 10 earned runs against the New York Mets. You don't know where this bullpen is going. It's kind of like playing roulette. You could win, but you also could lose at this point. If you have a good starting performance, I think this is kind of goes into the national season so far. Like, you've got your starters going 6-7 innings deep, and it's like, okay, well, now you got to turn it over to the bullpen, and you've got these young guys. Are they going to come in and blow it? You never really know. So if the Nationals, if you're winning by 5, we're talking about the Nats here, if you're winning by 5 in the 8th inning, you don't know what's going to happen. And I think following the Phillies so far this season, you guys are kind of having that similar issue. And I think it's been a big talking point up in Philly so far, because you guys did make some pretty key acquisitions this offseason. Maybe not a splashy one, but still, you guys did add. It just hasn't worked out so far.
Yeah, Jordan Romano kind of wish you didn't add him at this point. Yeah. Now, he did throw in the 10th inning in Chicago in the series ender on Sunday Night Baseball with a 2-run lead and the ghost runner on second. He was able to work out of that without giving up a run. So I don't know. It's weird. The velocity is there for Jordan Romano. The movement is there for Jordan Romano. They're trying to figure out if he's tipping his pitches at some point. He may just be washed. He had 2 all-star seasons in the past 3 years, but that was ended by a injury-heavy season last year, and the Phillies took a shot, and he has not been good. And after losing Jeff Hoffman and losing Carlos Estevez in free agency this past year, they just never filled those positions. So, again, this is another spot where the Phillies have much higher expectations. The Nationals are looking at trying to make something close to 500 happen this year, which would be a great stepping stone for a young team. And yet we're looking at the same problems for teams that should be in vastly different spots when everything is all said and done, which makes for a very interesting series in a spot where we are right now, where both of these teams are trying to kind of build momentum. When we played the Mets earlier up at Citi Field, they're talking about how they've been on multiple 6-game win streaks this year. And I imagine both of us are like, well, what does that feel like?
It seriously
feels like 2 steps forward, 1 step back for these teams. And the bullpen has definitely been the weakness for the Phillies. They just don't really have multiple high leverage arms you can trust. It's Matt Strahm, it's Jose Alvarado, it's half of Orion Kerkering, and it's everybody else. And maybe those guys will find their footing as the season goes on, to continue using that term. But right now, you kind of need 7+ innings out of any starting pitcher who's going to go in order for the Phillies to find a win. So it's a tough spot for them. But if the opening series was any indication, you may get that type of pitching in this matchup between the Nationals and the Phillies. We're going to talk a little bit more in depth about the series that begins tonight, if you're listening to this on Tuesday, April 29th, in a 3-game set here at Citizens Bank Park that I think is going to be a mini turning point to start off the month of May. We'll talk about why that is based on what the teams have recently done, and also take a look at, well, some great pitching matchups as we preview the series here on Locked On Phillies and Locked On Nationals. Let's talk about FanDuel before we do that, though, because the NBA playoffs are almost here. Now, neither the Sixers nor the Wizards are finding themselves in the NBA playoffs. I don't know if you can bet on the draft lottery, but I know with FanDuel, you can bet on the NBA playoffs, and they're giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you're going to get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. And if you've been watching the NBA playoffs, there are blowouts all over the place. I think the Cleveland Cavaliers just ended the Miami Heat franchise yesterday in a final game of that series. So in these early rounds, hey, look at some of those big point spreads and see if you think those teams can cover, or maybe look at some of your favorite player props. I love how FanDuel makes betting super easy, whether it's your favorite team or a team that you want to pick if your favorite team is out, or diving into those player props like 3-pointers, steals, assists. There's so many ways to bet with FanDuel. And plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. That's FanDuel.com. Let's dive right into this first game of the series, because I know it's 3 games, and I know we're going to talk about momentum and a turning point, but it's Mackenzie Gore, it's Zach Wheeler, it's a rematch of opening day in Washington. And you know what's kind of funny is, at least from Wheeler's perspective, and you'll have to let me know how Mackenzie Gore has been doing since we saw him in game 1 of 162. Zach Wheeler has not been great this year. He's been great for the average guy, but he has not been the Superman that we've known Zach Wheeler to be. It seems like he's still trying to settle in, and he's had some unlucky performances based on lack of run support at points, but the home run has really been tough for Zach Wheeler. The strikeout obviously has always been there for him. He's striking people out at an amazing rate, but giving up bombs. So is this another game where we're going to see, 13 strikeouts from Mackenzie Gore and Zach Wheeler dominate hitters on the national side? Like, what's Mackenzie Gore's path since that awesome first performance been?
Well, Mackenzie Gore has been great. And I think, if you were to compare Zach Wheeler and where he is now, you might look at his numbers and you're like, well, there's still room for improvement. But Mackenzie Gore is 25, 26 years old, and Zach Wheeler is a seasoned vet, Cy Young contender each and every single season. So they're just at different points in their career. But Mackenzie Gore, he has built off his opening day performance. Each of the last 4 starts here, he has gone 6+ innings pitched for the Nationals, and that is a huge key because, again, we were talking about this bullpen here in DC, and that's your biggest weakness also. you got to have starting pitching go deep in the game. So Mackenzie Gore, he's been great so far this season. Again, he struck out 13 batters against the Phillies on opening day, gave up 1 hit, walked 0. That was a huge performance for him. And then just 2 starts ago, he also struck out 13 batters in Colorado, which again, in the high altitude there, that's something that's hard to do. So Mackenzie Gore, he has been great so far this season. He's going deep into ball games, and he really just has not had that bad blow-up start so far, which kind of makes me think in the back of my mind, like Tuesday night at the bank against the Phillies. Again, as you were saying, Bryce Harper's kind of been on a cold streak here. Trey Turner has been off to a slow start this season. 2 former Nationals who kill us, it seems like, especially Bryce Harper. I don't love that matchup looking at it on paper. Just again, Bryce Harper, he's just has always killed us, and he's always going to kill us. So I kind of look at that. That scares me just a little bit. But again, Mackenzie Gore has been great so far this season. I expect a quality start from him tonight. Let's keep the ball in the yard. Let's see what he can do. But again, Zach Wheeler also kind of scares me also because we've dealt with them all the way since the Mets and also with the Phillies these past few seasons, and it's always tough.
Yeah, we got to enjoy them while we got them because the following couple of games, pitching matchups are not quite the level of Mackenzie Gore, Zach Wheeler. So the Phillies are going to face Jake Irvin, but they're undecided on who their starter for game 2 of this series is going to be. And then in game 3, the Nationals throw Mr. Undecided. I didn't know a guy could throw for both teams in the same series. And Taijuan Walker is going to be on the mound for the Phillies. So trying to work some stuff out with the rotation for the Phillies. It's because Christopher Sanchez had some forearm tightness against the Mets, so they're trying to be careful with him. He should be fine long-term, and they're also trying to work back in Ranger Suarez to the rotation at some point as he looks to make his first appearance of the year at the major league level. He won't do it in this series. I'd be surprised, but they're just trying to work around how they want to structure their rotation. What's with the undecided spot for the Nationals?
Well, actually, I mean, I will say it's going to be Brad Lord on Thursday's start. So Brad Lord is like he's a great story, actually. Made the team out of spring training. Was not really expected too much, but last season he really broke out. He's like a 19th pick at a USF, like came out of nowhere. These past few seasons has looked really good. And so far this season, he's sporting a 4.67 ERA. He started out of the bullpen, but a guy that we're both familiar with is Michael Soroka. And the Nationals signed a 1-year deal this offseason. After his first start with the Blue Jays, he went on the IL with some arm issues, but he should be working his way back up to DC relatively soon. So Brad Lord, the 25-year-old, like, again, 18th round pick. He's been okay so far. I mean, again, he's just going to be a spot starter for now. So I think that's kind of a game that if you're the Philadelphia Phillies, you're circling that thing on the calendar and you're hoping that you can take advantage of him because he's good, but he's nothing special at this point.
Yeah, well, Taijuan Walker's on the mound for us. And while there have been a couple good Taijuan Walker starts this year, based on where expectations are, there have also been some very bad Taijuan Walker starts. He didn't make it out of the 3rd inning in Chicago, threw like 86 pitches in the first 3 innings and was just gone. So who knows? Enjoy if you're someone who likes great pitching. Zach Wheeler versus Mackenzie Gore, because it could be a slugfest in the next 2 games of this series. Speaking of the series in general, I imagine the expectations for both of these teams, considering how they came in, is to try and find a way to win it. This is not Phillies Marlins. This is not Nationals Dodgers. This is a team in Washington that just took 2 of 4 from the Mets, who are a good baseball team right now. And the Phillies just found a way to take 2 of 3 from a red-hot Cubs team. So do you feel like this is a point where if you're able to take 2 of 3 in Philadelphia, the Nationals can say, okay, we have some momentum. The month just flipped to May. This is go time. We're starting to build towards the deeper part of this summer, the dog days. Maybe we can get something rolling here to show that we are a competitive team. Is that the mentality?
Yeah, you know what, it is. And really, like, when you look at it, like, this is a big game. And for these young players here in DC, like, you're going to have to learn how to play in these big-time games. And anytime you're playing in Philadelphia, it's going to be a big game. So I think, like, with the Nationals, you've got nothing to lose here. We have nothing to lose, meaning. And I think, again, like, this is going to be an opportunity for James Wood on a pretty big stage in Philadelphia. So they kind of put his name on the map. Same goes for CJ Abrams, who's had some good games at the bank here as of recent over the last few seasons. But I think that this is an opportunity for the Nationals to kind of stockpile some wins. And if you can take advantage of a Zach Wheeler who hasn't looked his best so far this season, and then whoever goes for you guys these next few days. I think that's going to be a pretty big turning point for the Washington Nationals. And again, we've got nothing to lose. Throw everything out there. You've got Mackenzie Gore, your ace on the mound tonight. This could be a big momentum swing for the Washington Nationals. And again, let's say we sweep this series. You're looking at a 500 baseball team, then we could be talking about playoffs here in DC.
If you sweep the series, there will not be any more crossovers because the Philadelphia Phillies fan base will find my apartment and they'll throw me out the window.
They will.
I fight for the team. But yeah, the Phils are just kind of in that spot where they haven't had any really bad series losses this year. The teams that they have lost series to have been either playing really, really good baseball at the time, or it was kind of a tough scheduling spot for the Phillies. But they haven't had that total, oh, okay, this is the series where they've got everything figured out. I mean, they came close to sweeping out the Miami Marlins in their last home divisional series, and then the final game of that series, the bullpen blows it. They almost blew game 2 after having an 11-4 lead in the 9th inning. So it just feels like this team is getting in their way too much, and with that comes a heightened expectation of when you play beatable teams, like the Phillies fan base looks at the Nationals as, you've got to go take 2 out of 3 or it's a failure. So the expectation is go get 2 out of 3. I saw someone talking about on social media earlier today, is this a must sweep series for the Phillies?
Oh, come on.
I'm like, yo, stop it. Like, no, I don't ever go into a series unless it's like the Rockies. Well, Ricochet shot at Locked On Rockies. I don't ever go into a series saying, hey, we're looking for the sweep. No, you look to take 2 out of 3. And if you do that in the first 2 games, then we have that conversation ahead of game 3. But both of these teams, because of their recent play, could be expecting a series win in Philadelphia. The pitching is going to get real interesting after the first game. And the offense, well, are they hot? Are they cold? Are they good? Are they bad? We're still trying to figure out exactly what these teams are. Maybe an NL East matchup in Philadelphia is just what we need to do that. So hopefully you all enjoy the next couple days of baseball. It should be an interesting series one way or another. And of course, it was an interesting crossover with Ryan Clary of Locked On Nationals. Ryan, appreciate you joining in on this. So why don't you tell everybody where they can find your stuff and follow your content? Oh, I think Ryan might have froze there. We might have lost him just at the very end. Well, you can go ahead and check out Ryan's work on Locked On Nationals. Follow him on YouTube and go ahead and subscribe to the Locked On Nationals YouTube channel. Check out all his great work. Just like we have Locked On Phillies every day, you can get Locked On Nationals every day. Of course, you can find all of our stuff on Twitter at socials at Connor Thomas 975 is my personal one. And while Ryan still sits there frozen, good luck to the Nationals. Not too much good luck to the Nationals in this series. And we will talk to you next time on the next episode of Locked On Phillies and Locked On Nationals.